Welcome in to Duval Daily presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thank you so much for tuning in. The Jaguars, they are 7-point home favorites over the Texans this weekend. Jaguars enter this game 2-2. They're still atop their division. The Houston Texans are 0-3-1. But all of a sudden, the Colts have 2 wins after taking down the Broncos in one of the ugliest Thursday night games I've seen in a while. The Titans have 2 wins as well. Is this a must-win game for the Jaguars? I think it's as close to it can be in a Week 5 contest if you want to win your division, which is going to be the easiest path to the playoffs for the Jaguars. You absolutely need to take down the Texans. It's your second division game. You are 1-0 in the division, having taken down the Colts, who you also happen to play the following week after you take on Houston here in Jacksonville. We're going to get into some matchups to watch right now. Follow me on Twitter at Jordan DeLugo, Generation Jaguar, at Generation Jag. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. If you want to support the channel further, you can become a channel member. You can also check out GenJag.com and grab some Duval gear. All right, so let's get into these matchups to watch. Christian Kirk versus Christian Kirk. Did not have his finest game last week, and a lot of that had to do with the rain. A lot of it had to do with Trevor struggling to hold on to the football. But Christian Kirk was not his usual self. He was not hauling in some of the tight window passes that you usually are used to seeing him come down with. Again, the rain was coming down and the winds were swirling, so you kind of understand what was going on there. But Christian Kirk, he needs to take care of his mentals and get himself right, because he's been the straw that stirs the drink on offense for the Jaguars for much of this season so far, this early part of the season. 3 of the 4 games, he has been absolutely dynamite for the Jaguars, really struggled against Philly. He just needs to get himself back on track, and he's going to be lined up against Desmond King, the Texans nickel corner, who I think he should be able to take advantage of. And again, he's not going to be aligned specifically and only in the slot. Doug Peterson will move him around the formation to create mismatches. He was able to create some mismatches last week. The Jaguars just weren't able to take advantage of them because of poor execution, again, because of the rain and the wind and all that. But Christian Kirk, Jaguars are paying him a ton of money. He's had a very good start to the season for the Jaguars. Coming off a down week, he needs to rebound, get himself right. He needs to beat Desmond King. He needs to beat linebackers that he may get matched up against, Christian Kirksey, maybe even Christian Harris if he returns in this game, the rookie out of Alabama. But yeah, I think Christian Kirk can and will rebound, but he needs to show us that he can do it. He needs to get it right. Another player who needs to rebound after his worst performance of the season is Jaguars right tackle Juwan Taylor. He's going to be lined up some against Jerry Hughes, and Jerry Hughes has been an effective pass rusher for his entire career. But even at the advanced age of 34, he's getting it done. He leads the Texans in pressures. He leads the Texans in sacks. He's a guy that is a pro, a true pro for Houston. And yeah, so far this year, he's picked up, I think he's picked up a handful of sacks already. 4 sacks already for the Houston Texans in 4 games. So yeah, the Jaguars obviously need to have their eyes on him, and he'll move. He'll align on the defensive right side, which is when he would be lined up against Cam Robinson. The defensive left side when he'll be lined up against Juwan Taylor. I think Cam Robinson's going to handle his business as he has been, but Juwan Taylor, he gave up 2 big pressures that led to forced fumbles, sack fumbles late in that game last week. He also got abused by Hassan Reddick a little bit earlier in the game as well. Juwan Taylor had been having a resurgent year for the Jaguars, and he needs to get back on track. He's in a contract year, final year of his rookie deal. For himself, he needs to get back on track, and for the Jaguars, he needs to get back on track. Because if he plays how he played last week, I think you have to start looking at other options, potentially Walker Little. Juwan Taylor and the Jaguars offense cannot afford for him to play as poorly as he did last week. Just can't have it. Now, Devon Hamilton, Jaguars nose tackle. I think he's going to be critical in this matchup versus Scott Quessenberry, because last week, the Jaguars, they did not get a lot of interior push against the run. Prior to that, Devon Hamilton and company had done a really good job of creating push up front against the run and kind of disrupting some plays in the backfield. I think Devon Hamilton needs to get back to that, especially this week with Dameon Pierce being probably the biggest threat the Texans have on offense, certainly running the football. He is fourth in the NFL in yards after contact per attempt right now. So he is causing problems for opposing defenses. One way to shut down the run game really quickly is to get Devon Hamilton at nose, creating penetration and blowing plays up in the backfield, making it difficult for Dameon Pierce to find his rushing lanes. And I think that matchup with Scott Quessenberry, Devon Hamilton should be able to take advantage of. And if you don't have Foley Fatukasi, you need Devon to pick up the slack. You need the entire defensive front to pick up the slack. They missed too many tackles last week against the Eagles. Dameon Pierce will make you miss tackles as well, so you have to swarm to the football. But I think starting up front in the middle with Devon Hamilton, he needs to set the tone against Scott Quessenberry this week. Now, on the back end of the Jaguars defense, Brandon Cooks, Texans wide receiver, he has given the Jaguars fits over the years, not only with the Texans, but pretty much every stop he's been at, he's given the Jaguars a hard time. One of the most underrated receivers in football. He's going to move around the formation. He's aligning primarily outside right now. So you're looking at Tyson Campbell. You're looking at Shaquille Griffin. Those two guys who they matched up with him twice last year, and they did not fare very well against Brandon Cooks. But now you have Darius Williams in the slot, and Cooks will align in the slot at times as well. Darius Williams is coming off his best game in Jacksonville. If he can continue to play the way he played last week, and you've got Tyson Campbell and Shaquille Griffin, I think, also playing pretty good football. You don't have to completely shut down Brandon Cooks in this game, but you cannot let him kill you with deep shots. If you're going to give him the short stuff, fine. No big deal. But you cannot let him beat you over the top. You cannot let him score long touchdowns and keep the Texans in this game. Finally, we're getting back to where it all starts for the Jaguars. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence, we all know, had a fumbling issue last week, again in the rain. Two of those fumbles were unforced. One of them, the ball slipped out of his hands. It looks like maybe it ran into his leg. The other one was the center quarterback exchange, where Trevor Lawrence was not able to hold on to that football. It got into his hands. He just didn't hold on to it. Can't have those types of plays. You know, if your right tackle gets absolutely demolished by Hassan Reddick and Hassan Reddick gets in there and strips the ball, that's one thing. And Press Taylor, Jaguars offensive coordinator, talked about that yesterday, talked about, you can't have the unforced ones. It's one thing when a rusher gets in there and strips it from you. You need to have two hands on the ball, but you can't have the ones that are unforced. And I don't think that's going to be a trend that continues for Trevor Lawrence here. I really do think the rain got the best of him last week, and we'll see moving forward how the Jaguars do handle the rain and Trevor Lawrence. Maybe get him some gloves, figure something else out. But doesn't look like that's going to be an issue this week. So Trevor Lawrence, for me, I'm not as worried about the fumbles this week. I am worried about two young rookies that the Texans have on their back end, and that's Derek Stingley and Jalen Petrie. Derek Stingley is dealing with a little bit of an elbow and shoulder bruise going on right now, but it looks like he's going to be able to play. As long as he's out there, you have to know where he is. You have to know who he's lined up against, because even though he's a rookie, even though it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows for him so far, if you make the slightest mistake, Derek Stingley can make you pay, and he can house that football. Same goes for Jalen Petrie, who's been playing all over the place for the Texans. He's been playing some nickel, some free safety, some box safety. He's being moved all over the place, kind of like Derwin James for the Chargers. Petrie, he's a heck of a football player. And just like Derek Stingley, if you give him an opportunity, he's going to take advantage of it. He picked off 2 passes in week 3. I think that Trevor just needs to be aware of where these two players are on every play. And I know that Press Taylor and Doug Peterson are going to have Trevor Lawrence ready for this matchup and ready for these opponents that they're going against. But you just can't have the little mistakes. You cannot do it against Derek Stingley and Jalen Petrie. Again, Otherwise, you might be keeping the Texans in this football game when you don't need to be. The Jaguars are a more talented team than the Texans. I think they're a better coached team than the Texans. And little things like letting Brandon Cooks get behind you or accidentally throwing one to Derek Stingley or Jalen Petrie, these are the types of things that can keep the Texans in this football game. The Jaguars need to come out hot. They need to come out hungry for a win after they lost to a team in the Eagles, who's one of the most talented teams in football, a very well-coached team. But the Jaguars had every opportunity to go up 21-0 on the Eagles, and they floundered and ended up not being able to take care of business down the stretch. But if they get up 21-0, that's a completely different ball game. So I think the Jaguars know that they lost an opportunity that last week, and they lost an opportunity in week 1. They need to make sure they take care of business against the Houston Texans team, who is a division rival. They are winless, but they do have some talent. The Jaguars need to get to 2-0 in the division as the Titans and Colts start to creep back into things here. They both have 2 wins now, and you're going to have to make sure that you're able to win this division because there's no guarantee you're getting into the playoffs if you don't win this division. There's a lot of talented football teams around the AFC that you'd have to contend with in the wild card. You want to win your division. You want to get into the playoffs in 2022. That is going to do it. Again, Christian Kirk versus Christian Kirk, Juwan Taylor versus Jerry Hughes, Devon Hamilton versus Scott Quessenberry, Campbell, Griffin, Williams versus Brandon Cooks. You cannot let him take the top off. Trevor Lawrence versus Derek Stingley and Jalen Petrie. Just got to know where those 2 football players are. Got to know where they are on every play and know what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish. All right, Duval. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday. Follow me on Twitter at Jordan DeLugo, Generation Jaguar, at Generation Jag. Please like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And you know what to do. You can go ahead and check genjag.com for some new gear. Become a channel member. We really appreciate your support, Duval. Thanks for tuning in.